secret to share with you. What we're going to do for the next hour is we are going to talk about what your employees are doing while you are here. The goal of our session, that your best performers are hacking you, is that an hour from now, we leave here better prepared to be the CLOs of the 21st century.
I have a friend of mine who works at an agency, basically representing actors and whatnot, and she had taken this job and then discovered that there was software on her machine that monitored every phone call, every email, every web page she was on, and she'd brought a bunch of contacts from her last job that she needed to get to by using Yahoo and whatnot. So she just basically was wildly ineffective and had to start her career over. So I was sitting there chatting with her, and I said, well, here, take this. And I gave her a USB key that let her, she plugged that in her machine, she rebooted her machine, and she had an operating system that was tunneled through to Sweden, so everything she did was completely invisible to her employer. And she said, this is amazing, thank you, Josh, so much. Can you please make another one for one of my good friends who's in a different company? And I said, well, just go download it, you can do it yourself. And she said, oh, no, I'm not a technical person. I can't do that. So I said, well, let me send you a URL. I sent her a web page, and she immediately wrote back and said, you sent me the wrong page. All this page says is download and double click. And I said, well, that's how you do it. So these are the kind of tools that we have. And the result is that you've got employees who expect to be able to go out online, find all kinds of materials that are hyper-personalized, that are extremely content-specific for what they want, and are usable in whatever format they like. And if you're not satisfying that demand, they're going to get it somewhere else. And there's no feeling of guilt. Why would they feel guilty? They're just learning to do their job. So this is where we're at today.
This is invisible, and it is happening. Deal with it. Life's tough, get a helmet, deal with it. What we want to know is, why is this happening? Can you see why it's happening? Who is the problem? Who owns it? Let's talk about this. Let's have an aha about an underground that's finally out in the open, coming out of the closet. We've got a couple people with mics. What do you guys think? Yes? Who owns it?
Every employee owns it. Every employee is part of the problem. We're part of that problem.
So just for the video, just repeating, we all own it, every one of us owns it. Anybody else want to contradict that?
I think we need to stop trying to control what it is that our folks do and figure out how to enable them to do things that are productive and contribute to the success of the organization.
You mean we should let them go on social networks and say all sorts of bad stuff about our company, and that's okay with us?
I know our senior execs and many folks have legitimate concerns about that because of the brand, concerns of brand, and some things that have happened that are very negative. But there are also a lot of things that happen very positively. And if we think about it and prepare for it and assist, put tools in place that allow people to leverage their, not just their intellectual capital, but the capital of them and all of their associates, there's really a gold mine that we can mine effectively.
Well, an interesting statement about that is, one, you've got to enable these people to do it, and two, it can really hit the fan if you do, right? Just to identify what Mike said when we started out, you're the guys who are stuck between the employees who need training and are telling you they need something different, and the folks at the top who say lower budget, faster results. I mean, you guys have all heard the song before. It puts you in a tough spot, yeah?
Yeah, but it depends on your leadership. I mean, if you have traditional conservative leadership that have been successful because of the way they've done things and want to continue down that path, you have to honor that, but kind of jump over the fence and jump back and push that line forward a bit. If you have enlightened management that's innovative and that are technology savvy and see and understand the benefit of moving in that direction, then the job is easier, but it's still quite a journey for us to take.
My dilemma is, how do we speak to our corporate IS department? Because I feel they're the ones that instill the fear in our senior leaders to say viruses, worms, whatever. So we can all appreciate, from a development and a learning standpoint, giving access, but then there's that, I'm sorry to say for any IS professionals, that black cloud of IS.
I use it all the time. I have in all my organizations. I use a lot of internet to get the information that I need. And being from the learning organization, we cannot control it. I think our goal should really be to make sure that we help the organization align towards the goals that are relevant to the organization. And if our employees are going to get information from other sources that is good, let's just celebrate that and create a framework that is necessary to make sure that there are no legal issues around some of the other industries like financial or pharmaceuticals. But other than that, I think we just need to celebrate it, create a framework. We can't control that. There are a lot of open source tools. There's a lot of information out there which are cheap, free, and they work. So, yeah.
Well, thank you all for participating in that. And what you just summarized was actually a lot of what we found when we interviewed the workforce. If you'll allow me just 2 bullets out of all the comments we just heard, 2 ways to summarize. In the back, we heard maybe it's competing philosophies or conflicting philosophies. And in the middle, we also heard something about balance. I'd like to take those 2 together and help refine that as a point of corporate-centered, user-centered. We do need to balance those 2. Right now, the balance is about 99.99999 corporate-centered and 0.0001 user or learner-centered. We are not proposing anarchy, even though you'll see that word on one of our slides shortly. What we are proposing that we need to correct the balance. This automatically shifts into, yeah, but what about? It's a balance. This whole invisible world of hacks is only invisible because you're refusing to talk about it. It's there. It's huge. 100% of your workforce are empowered citizens and family members that are using social media with complete freedom. So what's happening is they're seeing total freedom out there, total handcuffs in here. We need to create a more balanced world in here. Let's have a new conversation about how to build learner-centered training. And here's a basic model for it. The model is one-day design. Pick a pilot program where if you don't get it perfect, it's okay. Then just one day, have everybody online reviewing, and they can be in the same room. The way Twitter and Google do this is they might have users in a separate room, but the designers, the developers are all in the same room. So you could have 10, 20 people in the same room. Design it, build it. What would you say if we needed to train you on this? How would it go? And they respond back and forth throughout a day. One day. But the goal is to stop so much R&D up front and back end the R&D. Iterate, iterate, iterate. One day design, whatever it is, build it in one day, and then perfect it day after day after day. Josh, you want to add?
So this is increasingly how companies are getting launched. I know one of the big things a lot of companies talk about is we need more innovation. Well, a lot of the VCs that I talk with are now setting up conferences to get high school kids to come in and work on one-day design projects, and that becomes a company that they then buy. Part of the reason that this is so critical is that you're not going to succeed, right? We all know, I mean, you talked earlier, you want to be able to predict what's coming in the future. Well, unfortunately, one of the only ways you can do that is have some failures. So fail fast, fail often, and fail cheap, right? One day is relatively cheap for a failure. From that, you'll then be able to design to something that's actually worthwhile. The good news in all of this is that getting involved in social media, getting involved in new models of training, et cetera, you're going to have the next few days to speak to some really, really smart people and hear some really interesting things about how to actually do this. We want to give you a little kick in the rear and get you out there, recognizing that it's not so bad. You can actually do that. And something that we found to be enormously effective is something that I'm sure everyone intends to do, and all too few people actually do. And that's the old axiom, eat your own dog food. I'm familiar with this from the software industry, but I've heard it used in all kinds of industries. Basically what it means is, if you're developing something, whether it be a process, a program, an application, you need to use it yourself, which is terrible because anyone who's ever had to find out their own failures by using it themselves will tell you it's no fun. But it's enormously helpful because it's the only way you can correct those problems before you go to your users and your users show you a whole set of new problems that you couldn't have anticipated. It's critical, and it happens far, far too rarely. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, what we'd recommend is that you implement a new organizational measure. And it's qualitative, but you need to be asking this question regularly and charting how you're doing against it. And that is, go to your employees and ask them, how easy are we making it for you to do great work? And there's two elements of this which are really critical. One is, yes, they're going to complain, which is fine. That's what you want. You want to figure out what's not working for them. What is between them and great work? The second part, which is perhaps more critical, is you're getting them to think about their jobs in terms of excellence. What do you mean great work? We're not talking about satisfactory minimum requirements. We're not talking about hitting the clock at 5 o'clock, not 4:45. We're talking about great work. And when you start asking employees about their jobs in those terms, they start thinking about it in those terms. And then you can collaborate with them on doing something truly excellent, which is new. Bill, you had some points?
Actually, before I go on to the last 2 points, just focusing on two sets of words there, easy and great work. Let's just unpack those from the corporate-centered, user-centered perspective. From now on, what we're asking you to do is measure ease of use from a learner-centered perspective. And this also rolls up to corporate productivity and efficiency. The easier you make it for somebody to learn and apply what they learn, the quickly you are efficient and effective. Great work is also learner-centered as well as corporate-centered. Corporate-centered, it's whatever your mission, vision, values, goals are. But it's also user-centered and learner-centered. What is my view of great work? And will I get a chance to do that?
We've tried to scare you a little bit, although it sounds like you all were pretty scared when you came in. But also to introduce you to the fact that this is stuff that you can actually do. There are small changes you can do that can have a very large effect, and there's a lot of pretty radical stuff that you, if you are with enlightened leadership, can go ahead and bring back to your companies to implement. And we're excited to entertain questions. We'll be around during the break, and go get them.
You can do this if you are willing to be the proxy for the workforce and start being learner-centered. Go do this. Thanks.